Hi, so remember how I told you this next installment would be about how I struck out sort of on my own at the age of 11? Yep, you guessed it. I lied again. Well, it wasn't really lying, it's just that I remembered more stuff from before that time that just, memories. So, I have some both good and bad memories of my time in Putney, and I thought I'd share a few of them from each side with you. Let's start with the bad first, just because I want to end on a high note. You know, as you could probably tell if you've been following along with my story, I didn't have the most conventional Orthodox childhood, even up until this point. And so I'm sure that I might have been a bit strange, or I don't know. I'm really not sure how I came across as a young child at that point. But certainly there were kids who were mean to me, didn't like me for whatever reason. Not saying it was my fault, not saying it was their fault. Hey, we were only in third, fourth grade. But there were certainly a couple of people who were really quite brutish. So there was a woman, I always thought this was really interesting. Her name was Stanley Taylor, and she had a daughter, Letta. And Letta was a bit of a bully back then. And Letta, if you end up watching this, if you're out there, I'm sorry, it's true. I'm sure now you're a perfectly nice person. But even then, I was very tender about animals. I already told the story in a previous episode about how I helped to get these 3 kittens some homes. No mittens, just homes. And I will never forget being at school one day out in front of the school. I think it was recess, and there was a woolly bear caterpillar crawling across the sidewalk, and Letta just walked up and looked at me in the face and stepped on it and killed it. And I was crushed. Another thing I remember, I don't remember exactly if it was just you or you and some friends, but I remember being about 8 or 9 years old. We were sitting across from each other at a table, and I had on some stretch pants. Now, we were quite poor, and so my wardrobe was not the best, and there was a hole that had come through the seams, had opened, and I didn't realize that there was a hole right in the crotch of those pants. And wow, did they say some really rude things about why that hole was there. Fortunately, at that point, I was so naive that I really didn't get what they were saying, or what she was saying, depending. But yet that stuck with me. So why do I say that? Again, we're friends on Facebook now. You are a perfectly lovely person. I think it's more so people out there realize that even little kids, things that are said to them, they stick. So there you go. Those are my couple of negative things. But on a much more positive note, I don't know how I could have forgotten this, but Debbie and Bonnie Campbell. And they were friends, and their mom ran the Debonair Riding School, which was right next to the school, as I recall, the grammar school. And that's where I first developed a love for horses and for riding. I haven't done that in a while. I have a bad hip, but it's something I always enjoyed a great deal. I remember that one of the lessons involved having to, when you ride a horse, you have to squeeze your knees together really hard, against the saddle. And their mom put, I believe it was $1 bill around, in between the knee and the saddle. And if you went around a certain number of times without losing the dollar, you got to keep it. I think, at least that's my recollection. I also remember Debbie and Bonnie going into where all the grain was, which we used to like to eat. And one of you had hidden a Playboy that you had swiped from, I believe, your father from the house. And that was my first introduction to girly magazines. Wasn't a huge fan, not a fan now, but, it's something every kid goes through. Also, Sarah Johnson, back to her. They had a maple tree in their front yard, and I remember us tapping that tree, and on the back of their stove, they had sap boiling away so they could have their own personal store of maple syrup. Sugaring was a big deal in Putney, and to this day, I have the fondest memories of during the sugaring season, and when it would snow, you'd go to the sugar house and make sugar on snow, which is basically taking the very hot sap that's boiling away and drizzling it on a big bowl of fresh powdered snow. And what a treat that is to eat. Finally, Thomas Sidebotham and his mother Diane. They were always so lovely to me, and I hope they're out there still somewhere and know that I remember them so fondly, and I hope they're well. Okay, next episode, maybe we'll actually get to that story. Thank you for tuning in.